are live. Hello, my name is Ben Campbell. I'm a coach specializing in social and dating matters, primarily for men. This is a show called Off the Cuff, where it's like a Q&A format. I answer questions from my coaching community in a sort of off-the-cuff, unscripted format. If you want to ask a question or call into the show, you can go to discord.gg/self-improvement, or there's a link down in the description if that vanity link ever changes. So I'm going to start with a question. Hi, Ben. I hope you're well. I'm on a journey to becoming a millionaire. Congratulations, or at least working towards it. However, I wanted to get your perspective on something. When it comes to high-quality women, do you believe that having a net worth over £60,000 makes a significant difference in how they perceive or respond to you? Are there other factors that, in your opinion, might be more important to them? Some of the guys I know who are engaged, and I assume you mean engaged to be married, often say, if you have money, you can pull any woman. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Yeah, I mean, basically the question is, someone says in the chat, hey Ben, hello, thank you for tuning in. Basically the question is, do you think that having more, I'm going to ignore the specific figure because it's going to change country to country, but basically, do you think having more money and having a relatively large amount of money for the country that you live in makes a difference in how women perceive you or how people perceive you in general? And the short answer is absolutely yes, but there's nuance to it. And I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I don't really know where to start, so forgive me if I'm a little bit all over the place. I'm sure I'll bring it back to some sort of coherent point at some point. I mean, at first you say high quality women. What is... And I feel like people say these things are like talking about, oh, I want a bag of 10, or I want a high quality woman or something like that. And I think that it's like there's more to it than that, and people can generalize and say like, oh, this is what people find attractive, but what I think is a high quality woman might be completely different from what you think is a high quality woman, and this goes into what I want to talk about in terms of what you have to offer to something, because it's like the three, I say this all the time, and going back to other things we talk about in coaching, the three most important things for a relationship, and this doesn't matter if it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, it's the same three qualities. It's chemistry, compatibility, and connection. And chemistry is an ineffable thing. It's often literally chemistry. It's like the physical compatibility between you two. It's an energetic thing. It's your physical attraction. It's a pheromonal thing that you pick up off each other because your immune systems are telling you that you're compatible, etc. It's that ineffable, uncontrollable feeling of attraction towards somebody. Says chemistry. Compatibility is the level to which you guys can work together without causing conflict, and the degree to which your personalities are compatible, and your goals are compatible, and the things that you want from a relationship are compatible. And this can vary depending on whether you want a friendship or a co-worker or a romantic relationship or like a casual fling or a marriage or whatever. Like the level of compatibility that you'll require and expect for these things could be completely different. So when it comes down to like high quality women, it really depends on what you're looking for, and are there people that give that, like it's a common stereotype, and you even say here, if you have money you can pull any woman. It's a common stereotype that women care about looks and money, right, and status essentially. And while that's not untrue, there's a lot more to it than that. It's like, will being born good looking give you an advantage in dating? Yes, absolutely. Will having money give you an advantage in dating? Yes, absolutely. But a lot of it comes more down to the energetic factors. And I posted a video, and I should find the link to this study. I posted a video in the server maybe a week or two back where this guy was going around the gym and basically asking people how much they thought about certain features and how much these things matter. And he showed a study at the end that there was a few features, and I think they were facial masculinity, tone of voice, height, facial symmetry, I think was one of them, and then maybe aggression or something. But basically like tenets of and money maybe as well. It's like things that people think about the way that people look and are perceived that are important. And as men, we often think, I need to look very attractive in order to be wanted by women. But what the study showed was that all of these things combined make up less than 5% of dating outcomes for people. And then the rest of it comes down to personality and energy and things like this. So will having more money give you an advantage? Absolutely. But what it really comes down to is, what kind of person are you, and who are you in this relationship, and what is compatibility? What kind of people are you looking for? It's like there are certainly women out there that the only thing they care about is how you look and how much money you have. Do you want to be around those women? Are those high quality women to you? Maybe not. Do you want a gold digger? Now, having money in life as well is just a good thing. It's good to have money. If you have a surplus of anything, I don't think it makes you happier, but any sort of lack will make you less happy. And there is certainly something to be said about, as a man and being in a relationship, being able to provide, and that's something that you probably want instinctively as a man, and it's something that a lot of women will want you to provide as well. So having more money is useful in that aspect. But saying all this, it's like I've had experiences in my life where I once lived in a tent and I washed in a river and I worked in a deli and basically had no money, and I'd take the train into the city to go to the gym, and I was a bum, basically. I was a hobo. I had a girlfriend at the time. When I first moved into my first apartment, I had, again, absolutely no money. I've been broke for most of my life, right? I had absolutely no money. I lived in a 3 meter by 2 meter room. It was like a single bed and then one step and a desk at the other side. And it was the smallest room in the city, right? And I had no problem with women. I had no fucking money. I literally lived in a cupboard. It was a cupboard before I moved in and cleared the stuff out, right? And I paid about, I think, $150 a month for it, or the equivalent in pounds at the time. And I had no problem getting girls. But it was more to do with my attitude towards my situation than it was the situation itself. Like if I'd brought people, and I brought people back to that place all the time. If I'd brought people back to it and I'd been like, oh yeah, well, my room's really tiny, and I made a bunch of excuses and like didn't like it and whatever, the vibes are bad, right? And then they're going to come in, they're going to be like, oh, this is a disgusting fucking room, whatever. I mean, I kept the place clean and nice and whatever. But the way that I saw it and the way that I presented it to people was, you're about to see the smallest room in Dundee, right? And I'd like hype people up. I'm like, I live in a cupboard. It is so ridiculously small. But, I spend very little on this. And this was the truth at the time. I spend very little on my accommodation and stuff like that. And then I save up money and I go traveling because I love to travel. I like to, go and bum around Europe and play guitar and stuff like that. And so I spent maybe half the year traveling. And then the rest of the time I lived in this really cheap place. And because I spun it like that, because I was enthusiastic and I liked the way that my situation was, my energy was good about it. When I bring people back to this place, they go, wow, this is really tiny. How the fuck do you live here? But in a positive way. Like they were sharing in my perspective of the thing. They were inside my frame rather than like if I was upset about it, they'd be upset about it. I was enthusiastic about it, they were enthusiastic about it. And the same with the tent thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm saving up for this and whatever. And I had friends, I had a girlfriend, nothing was wrong at the time because my perspective on that situation was different. And so coming back to the money thing, it's like when you ask people what money is, they'll often say that it's value, right? That's the most common answer. It's like an energetic representation of value. And I think this is true, but I think it's not the whole answer. I think that it's an energetic representation of value and influence. And so the more value that you can provide to society, or the more influence that you have over a certain group of people, or a certain product, or a commodity, or whatever, a market, right? The more influence you have and the more value you provide, the more money will come back to you. And I love the English language because of the way that we put words together. It's like there's a lot of interesting roots to words. And it's like the word currency itself, it is a current. It's an energetic current. So the more influence you have, the more value you have, the more of that current flows back to you. And I think this goes hand in hand. Like the more money you make, the more influential and valuable a person you have to be, right? And vice versa. The more money you have, the more influential and valuable it makes you in turn. And if these things don't correlate, you're like the lottery winners that win a bunch of money and then it's all gone the next year because there's an energetic mismatch between who you are and what you have in life, right? And so if you're the kind of person that has a high net worth and it's consistent and you're making a lot of money, that makes you more attractive, not just because you can provide more value and you have more like resources or whatever to give. And there's like that sort of biological aspect to it, but it's also because who you are as a person has to be more influential and valuable in order for that current to be flowing towards you. So it changes who you are as a person as well. And coming back to my main point, the money is not the important thing here. Again, beyond the resource thing, it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is who you are and your level of compatibility with other people and the kind of people that you are attracting through the person that you are and your actions in the world. So you're saying, are there other factors that, in your opinion, might be more important? Yes. And this comes back to, again, the assumptions that we make that women care about how you look and how much money you have. And these things are advantages, sure. But it's like, I was having dinner maybe 3 weeks ago with a girl that I'm dating. And I had pretty much this exact conversation with her. And I was talking to her at the time and I said, and this is something I've probably said on the stream before, that There have been studies that have shown that women will rate you as more physically attractive, right? When they like your personality, when they like your energy, when they like what you have to offer, when they like who you are as a person, when there's that chemistry going on, there's a connection, there's compatibility, right? And I said this to her, I'm like, I'm sure you've dated guys in the past that in the beginning, when you first met them, you're like, oh, this guy's fucking disgusting, right? But then as you got to know them, you found them more and more attractive until you wanted them constantly. She's like, yeah, absolutely. And pretty much every woman that I've talked to about this says the same thing. There are, of course, exceptions to this, and there's people that only care about status and looks and money and stuff. But the most important thing, again, coming back, the most important thing is, who are you as a person? What are your expectations in the world? Like, if you're the kind of person that believes that you need to have a lot of money in order to attract people, that's probably influencing the way that you think about yourself. It's probably influencing the way that you act, and it's definitely influencing the results that you get. And this comes back to something that I posted in the forums. I think it's called Change Your Mind to Change Your Life. And essentially what I do in coaching, the first step in changing anything is to change your mentality about stuff. Because the way that you think affects the way that you act, that affects the results that you get, which then informs the way that you think. And it's this cyclical thing. And in coaching, what we do is target the mental aspect, because that's the most important aspect. It's where everything comes from, right? Everything in life is a physical manifestation of what's going on internally. And so if you're thinking negative things, it's black pill guys, for example. I could very easily become a fucking black pill YouTuber and find a million examples as to why the black pill's the truth and women only care about looks and all this bullshit. And if you're a brown person, or if you're missing a few teeth, or if you're just genetically not blessed, like 80% of people alive, that you have no chance. And it's like, you can easily disprove that by just looking around and looking at people's relationships. It's like, for that person to exist and to have those genetics, their parents needed to fuck, right? It's like, everybody's here because people fuck. But the thing that gets in the way of that is not the way that you look, it's your attitude about it. It's all these black pill guys. It's like, there are people that only care about that, and you can find infinite examples. And so if you're the kind of person that believes that, you're going to act in a way that gets those results, right? And you're going to look for examples that affirm your biased worldview. And vice versa. If you change your mentality and you go, well, the money doesn't matter, and what really matters is who I am as a person, and finding compatible people rather than trying to find external qualities in order to validate myself to people, then you become the kind of person that's more likely to go out and talk to people and be more confident about yourself when you do, and offer what you have to offer rather than offering what society thinks, what you think society wants from you, right? So rather than focusing on external things like money and looks and bullshit like that, even though, like, work on your money, work on your looks, work on all of these things, but the most important thing is the energy and how you feel about it. So if you're going around and you're like, going back to myself, talking about living in the shitty room, the time that I was traveling, I used to sleep in train stations and bus shelters and literally play guitar in the street for money and not shower for a couple of days at a time sometimes. And I constantly had people coming up to me and talking to me and being friendly and offering me places to stay. I had absolutely no problems with women at the time, because my perspective on my reality was that I was having a great time and I was a good guy to know and everything was good, right? I was happy with the way that my life was, and I thought that I was an attractive person, and therefore externally it happened. And you could argue that it's like, oh, it's just because you're genetically blessed and like reasonably handsome and whatever, in which case, thank you. But at the same time, it's like a few years prior, same exact person externally, different internal state, women were repulsed by me. I really struggled with friendships and relationships until I was in my late teens, because that was the point where I started working on these things. And then as soon as I changed my mentality, everything else changed around me and my life got significantly better and I started attracting people. So wrapping up, going back to your question, having a high net worth definitely makes a difference, but it's more that's more, and ignoring the resource aspect of that and ignoring the fact that there are people that primarily care about that, if you're not looking for gold diggers or whatever, or those kinds of women. The most important thing, and the reason that money will make you more attractive, is because of who you are as a person in order to even have that money in the first place, or who you are as a person in result of what that money gives you. Because if you have a lot of money, you're going to feel different, you're going to act different, you're going to have more confidence, etc. But the most important things are chemistry, compatibility, and connection. And so whatever you deem to be a high quality, high value woman, as you put it, are you in alignment with these people in terms of these factors? And if the answer is yes, you shouldn't have any problems dating them. If the answer is no, then work on those things until you can. And I hope that answers your question. I'll go on to another one, but relight my stogie first. Hey Ben, I've been thinking about visiting Sweden with the hope of finding a woman to marry. Okay. This is not the worst place you could go. Let's say the language barrier isn't an issue. How could I approach, and it probably won't be, everybody speaks English. How could I approach a Swedish woman who's between 5'7" and 5'10", drop dead gorgeous with an amazing personality, like a Disney princess come to life? The challenge is that I'm a brown guy, tall, 183 centimeters, and I consider myself somewhat handsome, maybe a 6 out of 10 by British standards, but my social skills aren't the best. And in Sweden, I'd probably be considered an ethnic minority. On top of that, let's say I don't make much money, earning around 25k a year from online jobs. How should I approach this situation, gain her approval, and eventually marry her? Also, what kind of traits or things should I look out for to meet such a woman? To add some context, my friend might be hooking me up with her when we visit a restaurant. So is there a woman already, or are you just... I'm going to assume that you're not being set up with a specific person. You're just looking to meet certain kinds of people. So I want to hone in on something. Where was it? My social skills, ethnic minority. Yeah. Oh, yeah. How do I gain her approval? So I mean, one of the main things that I teach with social stuff, with dating stuff, is that you should never be trying to gain the approval of other people, and you should never be trying to make anything work with a specific person. So your goal is not to go out and target a person and go, like, I advocate for cold approach, right? I think you should be going out into the street and talking to people, and there's a very specific way of doing this that is completely sets me apart from all the pickup guys, because all that stuff's really shitty and it makes people very uncomfortable. If you go into the forums, this is all for free. You can read this stuff for free. In the social forum, there are 3 posts. And I mean, there's a bunch more, but there's 3 specific posts that answer this question quite well. One of them is why you should make approaches. And then the second one is how to make a good approach. And then after that, I think it's called approaching, like mindset next steps or something like that. And these 3 posts essentially go over how and why you should behave in a specific way when you're making approaches, basically going over like how to not make people uncomfortable, how to do it in a way that demonstrates that you're socially competent, you're aware of the implications of your actions, and removes a lot of the discomfort and potential downside for doing this, but for yourself and for other people. So how to do it in a good way. And I made a video on YouTube about pickup, like dismantling it, and in that video I gave these articles to a bunch of women to read. And every single one of them came back going, love this, wish more men were doing this, etc. So go and read those posts. I'm not really going to, I'll summarize them a little bit here, but that's the main directory for you in terms of how to approach people. But yeah, don't be looking to gain any specific person's approval. And it's good to know what you want, right? It's good to have criteria, because you're more likely to see, like, if you believe, if you're looking specifically for green things, you're going to notice more green things in your environment. If you're looking for blue, you're going to notice blue, etc. So knowing what you want, and I also have a post on this called Know What You Want, but having a refined idea of what you're looking for from a relationship or from dating. And I mean, a lot of the things that you're talking about are you said an amazing personality, but get more specific on what that means to you, right? What is an amazing personality? What do you want her religious ideas to be? What do you want her like emotional state to be? Do you want her emotional or rational or one or the other? Like, how does she communicate? What are the love languages? What are her interests and hobbies and all of this shit, right? And again, don't look for a specific person. Look for people that have these qualities, and then filter for connection and filter for chemistry and compatibility. And when you find these things, then you can start to build a connection with people. And I think I have another post on that as well. But essentially, building connection is essentially the degree. The higher a degree to which 2 people share an emotional understanding and understand how each other feel about things and have like shared emotional experiences, the more that they will feel connected. So chemistry and compatibility are things that you go into something with. They're things that you turn up with strangers and you just either have or don't. Compatibility is something that you build over time. And we can talk about that in future. So my advice to you would be, like, find people that fit what you want, right? And then don't try to qualify yourself to them. Because if you go into the conversation like, how can I gain her approval? That shows me inherently that your mindset is that you're not good enough, right? Which is a horrible way to go into things. Now, are things going, like, you're going to need to, like you say, you're a brown guy, you're this height, you're whatever, you earn this much, whatever. You're going to need to find people that these things are either part of the compatibility with you, or they're just not relevant. So the things that you think are downsides in your life, you're going to need to find people that they don't care about. And the things that are positive in your life, accentuate that stuff. Like, what you're not really talking about anything. Like you say, oh, I'm an ethnic minority, I'm brown, I'm this, I'm that, my social skills aren't the best. Again, work on that. That's what we're here for. what are you bringing to the table? What are you offering? Why not focus on that instead of what you don't have, right? Or what might be a problem, right? And go into these things again. Just go up to people, talk to people, follow the template that like, hey, I understand this is a really fucking weird thing to do, but you're a super attractive woman, and if I didn't come up and talk to you, I'd be kicking myself all day, wondering like, what a fucking asshole am I that I don't come and talk to you, right? And she'll, oh, thank you, that's so flattering. Are you single? And she'll either be like, yeah, or no. And if she says no, great, fine. Have a nice day. Pleasure to talk to you. If she says yes, great. Let's have a conversation. You want to go for tea? Let's get to know each other. Let's build that. Keep mixing up these words. Let's build that connection over time. And then you look for all. And then if you have a refined idea of what you want and what you're offering, that you can then figure out how compatible you are and build a connection. And then from there, you start a relationship and etc. Yeah. It's good to have qualities that you want. There's nothing wrong with wanting someone that's, drop dead doors, amazing personality, but get more refined on what it is that you actually want. Get really clear on this, and part of that comes from experience as well. Like you're like, I'm going to find a person and get a relationship and marry them. It's like, have you ever been in a relationship? Do you have experience with these things? Do you know what holds a relationship together? Have you been in a fight and dealt with it properly? Like, how are you on an emotional level? How are they on an emotional level? Are you capable of dealing with these things, right? And I'm not saying it's bad to go for a serious relationship, but I would advocate that you spend some time just dating and if there's religious connotations here, which I think there might be, where it's like haram or whatever to be sleeping with people. You don't necessarily even have to be having sex, but date around and spend time around women and figure out on an emotional level, like, what you want, what you don't want, and on a practical level as well, what you like, what you don't like, what works for you, what doesn't, how to deal with things, and spend more time around people and work on your social skills at the same time. And then you will reach a level where you know exactly what you want, and then you can go out and find it. And going out and finding it is not about going and targeting people and trying to make them fit. It's about talking to as many people as possible, finding the ones that do fit, and filtering them through that layer of compatibility and building connection with them until things naturally develop. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, okay. Go on to the next one. This thing keeps going out. What are your thoughts on dating, especially in challenging situations? Imagine someone who's never really approached a woman before, and the one time he did, she actually said yes, but he was so shocked that he didn't even know how to respond. On top of that, he's broke. This is the same person asking, by the way. On top of that, he's broke, which makes the whole process even more intimidating. How would you approach dating in this kind of scenario? What would be your strategy or plan, especially when confidence and finances are lacking? Work on the confidence and finances. Again, the finance thing is not as important as you think it is. Is it better to have more money? Yeah, as we talked about. Do you need it to have a successful dating and social life? No, absolutely not. I mean, if she says yes, great. Yeah, don't know how to respond. I mean, it sounds like you're talking about a personal anecdote here, but I don't really have enough information to comment on that specific scenario. So I don't know, maybe call in next time and talk about it, or give more detail. But just generally, how would you approach dating if you lack confidence? Build confidence, and confidence is built through either faith or competence, right? And we'll talk about this. So for someone to be confident, rather, I think it's rather contextual. Like, you might be confident in a certain area of your life, say it's your work or whatever. Like, you're confident at one thing. I'm very confident at playing guitar. I'm very confident at coaching. I'd be terribly unconfident at like driving a car. I don't know how to fucking drive, or wrestling alligators, or what other things have I not done? Playing fucking chess. I don't know, like things that I'm not good at, I'm not confident in. So confidence is contextual, and it either comes from faith. So like you a lot of clients come and they'll say, I lack social confidence. I don't believe that I can get the things that I want, etc. And I'll tell them, if you follow my advice, I guarantee that you will get results, and you'll get the results that I tell you. I can't tell you when, because it's not a linear process, but if you put in the action that I tell you to put in, you will at some point get the results that I tell you that you will get, right? I'm 100% sure on this, because every single time that I've done it, it has worked. And with the company that I run now, and the previous company that I used to work for, that's been in business since like the 90s, I think, early 2000s, hundreds of clients, not a single one of them has failed to get the results if they actually apply the advice, right? It's one-to-one, right? It's not linear, but it's guaranteed, let's say. So if you believe that, if you come to me and you're like, yeah, I trust this guy, I think that what he's saying is true, that will give you some level of confidence, because even though you don't have the experience or the competence to back it up, you have faith in what I'm telling you is true. And that changes your mentality, which changes the way that you act, which changes the results that you get, right? Down the line, as you start to get more experience and like change the way that your mind works and change the results that you get, and see that things are different from your internal expectations. We'll talk about ego in a second. Once you get to that point, you start to develop competence as well. So that adds to your level of faith, because you start to see that the results are in alignment with what I tell you they are. But then as you gain more experience, like if you are not socially competent, but then you start going out and talking to people all the time and putting yourself in social situations, you will start to learn how people respond to things, and not necessarily like what to say and how to say it, because that's getting down the line of like just faking things and saying lines. But you start to become more comfortable navigating social situations, and especially difficult social situations. And that gives you a level of competence, because you have faith and trust in your own abilities to make things work. So you either trust that the situation is going to work out for you, which is like a degree of faith, or you trust in your own abilities to navigate things. And when you have that level of competence in any area, you develop what's called confidence, and it's essentially the feeling that things are going to work out fine, right? And to build this in social situations, like you say, you go out, you talk to people, you immerse yourself in those kinds of situations so that you develop competence, and you also realize that the things that you, especially your negative expectations, aren't true, right? And let's talk about the ego. So the number one thing that holds people back in social situations is ego. It's that little voice, or what I will call ego for the purposes of this. It's that little voice in your head that you think is you, that is constantly giving you like reasons and excuses for things. And historically, like we're not even historically, we're very social creatures. It's very important to us that people in our community like us. It's very important that the people around us, that we fit in, right? Because if you're living in especially a smaller tribal society, the status quo and the things that everybody else does are the things that you do. It's dangerous to be someone that pushes the boundaries, right? Because if you don't conform, and you can see this in children, and especially in like tribal groups in society, people want you to, when you're in a group, people want you to conform to their expectations of what that group does. They want you to share behaviors. It's like a crabs in a bucket thing. If you start to steer away from that, they'll either try to pull you back or they'll completely push you away. And so we have this fear that if we do anything that's outside of the norm, especially socially, and especially if we're not used to doing things in social situations and pushing boundaries a little bit, we fear that we might say or do or whatever something wrong that causes people to dislike us. And if people dislike us too much, we might end up ostracized. And if we're completely alone, we can't survive, right? At least not in a historical context. I think emotionally you can't survive now, but you could still go to work and earn money or whatever, even if you have no friends and no people around you, which is a sad state that a lot of people are in modern society. What even was my point? Getting back. Oh yeah, ego. So that little voice in your head wants you to keep doing the things that you've already been doing, and it's very scared that if you do anything out of the ordinary, that people aren't going to like you, and if people don't like you, bad things happen, right? And so it will come up with excuses like, you can't go talk to that person for this reason because you'll upset them, or you don't look good enough, or you've just come out the gym, you're sweaty. It'll come up with reasons to stop you from taking action. And sometimes these reasons are fairly innocuous. They're just things like, you don't need to, or whatever. And sometimes they're quite extreme, like, no, if you do that, something really terrible is going to happen. And going back to the thing I said earlier about like the mindset and the actions and the results forming this sort of circular process, targeting the mindset is one thing, and just having faith that what I tell you is true, and that you can take social actions that you think are going to happen negatively and you will be fine. Having faith is good, and changing your mindset. But taking action is even more important in this context, in a social context. Because like that voice seems very reasonable. It comes up with very reasonable things, and you're like, oh yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, if I go and talk to this woman, I'll catch fire and die, you know? And obviously it's not that extreme, but it's like it will come up with reasonable sounding things to prevent you from taking action. But if you push past that and you go, no, fuck you, I'm in charge, and you go and take the action, you will very quickly find that people are far more forgiving on the whole. Like, you will meet assholes, but on the whole, people are far more forgiving and far more open than you might assume, right? And I've taken dozens of clients out, if not hundreds, right? And the previous company that I worked with the several coaches that we had, took out hundreds of people. And this was always true. Your expectations about what's going to happen if you fuck up in a social situation never align with the reality. Like, people are very forgiving, people are very friendly, they're very open, right? And so once you have that experience, and part of the course that I run is you deliberately embarrass yourself in public and you deliberately do things that you think are going to end badly. And then you find either A, nobody gives a fuck, right? People don't care about you. They're not paying attention to you. They're thinking about themselves and how they appear. Like, you know, you see someone doing something stupid in the street, you might pay attention for 10 seconds, but then you're just on with your life. You don't actually care and you never think about that person again. I guarantee you there have been hundreds of occasions where you've experienced that kind of thing and you don't even remember them because they're just filtered out of your life as being completely inconsequential, right? And so you begin to experience the reality that you can do whatever you want and people don't really care. And in fact, if you start to behave in a way that is contrary to most people's social expectations, people begin to like and respect you more. And so it gets to the point where you realize that you become essentially socially free. You become free from the restraints of your own mind and your expectations about what you can and can't do in civilized society. And you realize that you can talk to whoever you want and you can say whatever you want. And within reason, as long as you're not deliberately trying to upset people, you can do whatever you want and you will get good results from doing this. Like, you can just go up to somebody in the street and go, hey, you look cool, you want to be friends? Or, hey, you look attractive, you want to go on a date? And most people will respond highly positively. Like, there's an exercise that we do on the course where you walk up to people and you pick the people that you find most intimidating, whether it be an attractive woman or like a big burly fucking biker dude or whatever. It doesn't, whoever you think would be most intimidating. One of the exercises that you walk up to people and you start a conversation, ask for directions, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But during this conversation, you start picking your nose, right? You got to do three things. You got to taste it, wipe it on your shirt, and then at the end of the conversation, go for a handshake, right? 90% of people shake your hand. They might be disgusted. They might be thinking, oh, but in their mind, saying no to you is the social implications of going, no, that's disgusting, for most people are worse than just shaking your hand and going and finding a Kleenex. People are so trapped within the confines. And so doing these kinds of exercises makes you realize that you can get away with, and it's not necessarily good to push people's boundaries all the time, but if it reaches the point where you're changing your own mindset about your social expectations, it's wonderful because it frees you. And then you reach a point where you're like, I can do anything. Talking to someone, like going and just talking to someone and making a friend or getting a date, is the easiest thing ever after going through all these exercises, right? And you reach a point where you have a level of confidence because you realize that you are safe, and that little voice in your head starts to work for you. So rather than telling you, no, don't go do this, don't go do that, and coming up with all sorts of reasonable sounding excuses. And again, people will defend, like most people, you talk to most people about this stuff, they will defend these excuses and they'll go, no, that's definitely the reality. It's like, what fucking experience do you have? And maybe you had, like, a lot of people have like one bad experience as kids or whatever, or maybe their parents tell them like, don't go and don't do this or don't do that, or don't upset people, don't make too much noise, like blah, 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 blah. And so they ingrain these things that like, oh, I just need to be quiet and sit down and please everybody, and I can't make anybody upset, and I can't make anybody pissed off, and I certainly can't ask for what I want in life. And so it becomes like a repeated thing in the psyche. But as you start to challenge that and go out and say, no, fuck you, I'm in charge, and take actions that are contrary to what you believe you can do, you get results that are contrary to what you expect, and it completely shifts your mentality. And then over time, you become that person, that voice in your head starts working for you, and it starts going, yeah, fuck yeah, go and talk to that person. Yes, go and ask that girl out. Yes, go and make that friend. Yes, make that joke in this crowd where you think it might not go over well. That's really funny, right? And that can make you an asshole. Like, I'm a little bit of an asshole sometimes, but it's very, very freeing. And you get a hell of a lot more out of life. You end up with a good friend circle and a good social network and good relationships and all of this stuff just from challenging what you think you can do, right? That's the basis of most of the coaching that I do. So circling back to your question, you build that confidence and stop worrying about what you don't like. Yeah, work on these things. If you feel you don't have enough money, work on that. If you feel you're not confident enough, work on that. But the results that you get are in direct alignment with what you expect from life. There's every kind of person out there, and every kind of person with every kind of expectations. If you want to be like a black pill person that believes that you can't have things because you're not pretty enough, right? Then you will meet people and have experiences that align with that because of how you act and the filter that you create in the social world, right? And then you'll get into echo chambers with other guys that do the same thing. if you're the kind of person that believes that the world is full of like horrible, mean people that are going to fuck you over and manipulate you, you're going to meet all sorts of those people, because there are all sorts of those people out there. And the filter that you are creating with your mentality and your actions brings them into your life, right? Whereas if you're like me and you believe that people are kind and trustworthy and open and friendly and funny, and that the world is a beautiful, wonderful place to be, that we're all inhabiting together, and that people are inherently good, then that's your predominant experience. Those are the kinds of people that you're going to meet, because you're going to think in a way that creates actions, in a way that creates results, that brings you that. And all of the other people, like there's every kind of person in the world. There's good people, there's bad people, there's monsters, there's angels, there's everyone. It's how you act and how you perceive the world that filters those people in and out of your life, right? Just like if I, it goes back to the room thing. If I look around my room and I'm very focused on green things, I'm going to see a bunch of green things. If I turn back to you and I go, what's red in my room? I don't fucking know, right? Because I was focused on green things. So I had a conversation in the server the other day where someone was talking about toxic people. And I'm like, I don't experience toxic people in my life. Either they just get filtered out, or I just don't meet them in the first place. Maybe it's an energetic thing. Maybe it's the way I'm acting, but it's definitely true. What you expect from reality and the way that you act, especially in social situations, will 100% dictate the results that you get. So think about it in terms of that far more than, because it seems a lot like the person that's asking these questions, it seems a lot like your mindset is that you don't have enough to offer, and that it's going to be difficult for you to get certain things. You have certain expectations and things that you want. But the way that you word your questions, it's always like, I don't have this, I don't have that. And it's like, how do I validate myself to people? And how do I make people like me? And my answer is that you don't. You find people that are compatible. Either you work on yourself to the point where you have all of the things that you want, and then you find someone that's in alignment with that. Or you go and find a high value person that is in the same situation as you and also wants to work on things together. And then you grow together as people, because that's where your level of compatibility is at right now. It's all about compatibility and chemistry and connection. You should be looking for these things and challenging your social fears and just going out and talking to people and finding people to filter in and out of your life, rather than worrying about what do I have, what do I not have, what do people expect. Like, turn it away from the external and what does everyone expect from me, and turn it into the internal and what do I want and how do I find people that align with me, right? That's what it comes down to. So I hope that answers that question. I need to finish smoking this. Same person. Hi, Ben. I've been thinking about how to improve my social skills, especially when it comes to interacting with women. Could somebody chat to a woman the same way they chat to a guy? Yes, absolutely. Like doing the fist bump, saying, "You all right, mate?" and using British. So, yeah, maybe not. I'm from England, and I tend to approach my mates in a casual, friendly way, and I'm not sure if that works when I want to talk to a woman I find attractive. So if you're talking about approaching someone, like there is a bit of like gendered sort of in the way that you treat people. Can you, like, I advocate, like when you're texting people, when you're talking to people, like I tend to communicate with everybody the same. There's little like nuances to that and things that are different. Like, I might hug one friend and not hug another because we're not at that comfort level. Or I might go, "Hey bro, how's it going?" But I'm not going to say "Hey bro" to a girl that I'm dating. Like, there's differences there. But in general, the way that you communicate, like 80% should roughly be the same, because why would you change the way that you communicate between people? And I've often heard it said that like people have different faces for their parents and for their friends and for this. And maybe I'm lucky that my parents are cool, but it's like I don't really have anybody in my life that I change my personality for. And over time, I think as you become someone that is more refined, you have more of an idea of who you are, and you refine your personality a little bit more, you start to behave the same around everybody. So to an extent, yes, you can chat to women the same way you would talk to a guy. But if you're talking specifically about approaching people, there's more nuance to that. So I would say approach, pre-frame, compliment, question, right? And I don't really like formulas because it's a bit pick-uppy, but this is objectively the best way to approach people if you're going to do cold approach. If you like, say you find an attractive woman, you want to go and talk to her. And again, I go over it in those posts that I talked about earlier. If you go into the social forum, you can read them and it'll explain it a lot better than I can right now. But you make the approach, you walk up to somebody, and again, I go over how to do this in a good way so that you don't like scare people or get in front of them or make them feel cornered or anything like that. So I really suggest that you read these posts. But approach, and then a pre-frame is a social tool. I would argue it's the best social tool, and this isn't just a dating thing. You can use this in any scenario. It's essentially taking all of the things that you think might cause problems and just saying them. So say, for example, and this is the example that I use all the time, but it's a good example. Say you want to chat up a barista in a coffee shop, right? There's a cute girl working behind the counter, big queue of people behind you. You're second in line. You're nervous. You're about to talk to this girl. You want to get her number, whatever, right? If you just say, "Hey, you're really pretty. Can I have your number?" there's a whole bunch of implication there that she doesn't know if you're like there's a massive mismatch between what you want and what her expectation, like the different expectations for what's happening here might not be in alignment, and there might be assumptions and things, and like she doesn't know who you are, she doesn't know the implications of saying no to you. Like a lot of guys cannot take no for an answer. She doesn't want to cause a scene in front of all these people. She's very busy, so if she gives you time and attention, it's like if there's a whole queue of people behind you, how long is this guy gonna fucking take? Is my manager gonna get mad at me? Again, I have to be nice to people. If I upset a customer, am I going to lose my job? Like, well, if I don't like him, all of this stuff comes up, and there's a whole bunch of implication on top of the already nerve-wracking thing of being asked out, which you can't really get around. Like, there's some sort of, you know, in social situations, there are going to be times where when you're nervous or when, and that's okay. You shouldn't try and protect people's feelings all the time, but there's a line, and that line is where you start to use a preframe. So if you're in this kind of situation, it's far better to start with, hey, I understand you're really busy right now. I hate to put you on the spot, but I just have to say this. I find you very attractive, and I'd really love to get your number so that I can call you later. Feel free to say no to me. Like, just you can give me the number and I'll just text you later and you can deal with all of this. Or you can say, no, I'm not going to cause any problems for you. It's perfectly fine. And that sounds like a hell of a lot. And some people might assume that this is going to sound like insecure or whatever. And it might, depending on how you, but that's more to do with the energy of how you say things rather than what you're saying. So like if you say, hey, you know, I really want your number, but if you're too busy, like it's okay, you don't have to, that comes across as insecure. If your energy is different, it's like, hey, I really want to get your number, but if you're too busy or you're not interested, just say that. It's perfectly fine. Same words, different intention, different energy, very different thing. But by doing all of this, and yes, it's a mouthful, and yes, it's a lot to say, and people might think you're over communicative or whatever, but you're removing a lot of the potential implication, and you're letting her know that you understand the implications of your actions, and that you understand, you're socially aware, you're socially calibrated, you're socially aware, you understand what you're doing, and that takes a hell of a lot of the pressure off, and it takes a hell of a lot of the potential danger out of the situation, right? And so at that point, she's more likely to feel comfortable around you. And even if she says no, afterwards, she's more likely to feel comfortable around you because you're the guy that was honest with your intentions and clear about what you wanted, and say you keep visiting. Like, I've had plenty of scenarios, and clients have had plenty of scenarios where people sit, like, say you ask out a girl in the gym, right? It's like, oh no, I can't possibly do that because I'm going to see her every day and I don't want to make her workouts awkward. So say that. Walk up to her, hey, we're in here all the time together. I really don't want to make this like a weird place for you. So if you say no to me, things will just go back to normal. We can just be completely friendly. But you have a fantastic ass. Can you teach me how to squat like that? I'd really love to get to know you. Let's go out for coffee, etc. You're so beautiful. Let's get to know each other, etc. Right? You do this and you put it in that sort of way. She understands that you know what you're doing, and she feels safe saying no to you. Right? So she might say yes, and you go out for coffee, whatever. Even if she says no, you see her around in the gym again. Hey, how's it going? Oh, hey. Hi, how are you? Because she's comfortable around you, know, because she understands where you stand with each other. So I hope that helps. And you know, compliment question. The question that you want to get to the point quickly. Are you single? Do you have a boyfriend? Are you interested in dating me? You want to go for coffee? Like, get to the point quickly. Because that gives people all of the information that they need to understand why you're talking to them. It's like there's so many scenarios where you might be talking to a girl, and if you're just trying to be friendly, and again, a lot of this comes, like, I've heard so many excuses about this. A lot of guys are like, no, I prefer to have a conversation first, so like we get the vibe and stuff like that. Usually that, or let's say always, that's an excuse that they just don't want to be direct because they're afraid of the con. Like it's far easier to get to try and gauge whether someone's attracted to you first before asking than it is to just straight up ask. But it's always better to just straight up ask. And what was I talking about? I've lost my train of thought. I don't know, but I hope that answers your question. Next one. So I recently came across some discussions that got me thinking critically about self-improvement. One person suggested that self-improvement can be a selfish pursuit, often driven by the desire to feel more prominent, inflate one's ego, and belittle others who aren't as focused on it. They point out how the whole concept of self-improvement has become trendy, almost like a cult, where the focus is more outward appearance or superficial achievements rather than becoming a genuinely better person. Personally, I find it ironic and somewhat disappointing that self-improvement has become so self-centered around things like look maxing or other surface-level changes, rather than emphasizing qualities like kindness, generosity, and being a better human overall. What's your take on this? Do you think that the current trend in self-improvement is too self-centered? How can someone pursue self-improvement in the way that genuinely benefits not just themselves, but also those around them? Thanks. That's a very good question. And I do agree that, you know, people like to talk about themselves, people like to think about themselves, people like to appear good to other people. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but there is a line where it starts to become performative. And I do agree with you that a lot of self-improvement stuff just in the modern, like it's all, there's always been a lot of scams and grifts and egomaniacs and stuff like that. And it's very easy when you get into this world as well. Like if you're the kind of person that starts from the bottom and then you start working on yourself and then you become the kind of person that's giving advice to other people and then other people start looking to you as like a source of authority, it's very difficult not to let your ego take over at that point and just I know everything about it. Like I have this problem sometimes. Most people have this problem. It's like I am the authority and I know everything about everything, and then you become a fucking asshole, right? And yeah, a lot of self-improvement stuff can be just performative. I think the point is to just the point is to improve your life, and then once you've improved your life, help other people improve theirs. Like that's my goal. Like fix the problem that I had in other people, and I don't know. I think it can be both at the same. Like I certainly get an ego boost from doing this. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it is important to draw a line in your own mind and to keep these things in check. So to keep your ego in check, try and remain modest, and to not think you know everything about everything. Like the things that I mainly talk about, like the social stuff, I do consider myself an expert in this field, and I have the results and the experience to back it up, even though I'm young. Like I've been doing this for 13 years at this point. Not coaching specifically, but I've been in the self-improvement sphere and working on this shit obsessively for like 13 years, and I've been coaching for around 5 now, I think, and people get results. People get fucking results. I'm good at what I do. I know everything about this area, or nearly everything about this area, everything that counts about this area, so I'm very confident in my level about that thing. I give some productivity advice as well that works for me, and I give it to other people, but I don't frame it in the same way where I'm like, I don't really know, this is how I think this works. And I think that's very important, because a lot of people get into this industry and they get to a point where it's like they might have a level of expertise about something, or maybe even not, but then they start to be an authority on everything, and that's not healthy, and it causes more problems in the industry than it solves. And I wrote a post about this. It's called "You're probably not ready to help people," and I fell into this trap, and a lot of people fall into this trap, that when you first get into self-improvement, you're looking to fix problems in your own life, and you see people that are coaches or mentors or gurus or whatever the fuck you want to call them that have answers, and what a lot of people want to do is skip the step where they actually do the work and get the experiences and get the results before they start teaching, and they just start taking advice that other people have given and parroting it. So they listen to the Huberman podcast, and then suddenly they're an expert on health even though they're not healthy, or they listen to a bunch of pickup guys and suddenly they're an expert on dating even though they don't have a good dating life, or whatever it is, right? And I think there's this, it's like there is a level where when you come into these things, it's like, if you don't feel good about yourself, you don't feel where you are in life, there's a lot of hard fucking work that you have to do. You need to change your mentality, you need to change your actions, you need to change who you are as a person and what you do in life in order to change the results that you get. And that's really difficult. And it's very tempting, and I don't think people necessarily do this consciously, although some people do. I think it's more of a subconscious process. It's much easier to skip that step and just immediately take the authority angle and go, yeah, I've read about this stuff, or I've seen these videos, therefore I know, and I can give advice to other people, and you get validation from that, and people look up to you as if you've done the work. And I would say that the vast majority of people that give advice, especially dating advice, like pickup is fucking rampant and so destructive. I have a video about that on the YouTube channel if you care. The vast majority of people that are giving advice have nothing to back it up. And I speak to people all the time that are like, yeah, I'm also a coach. I'm like, great, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I just give no nonsense advice to people, man. Like, I can tell you what you need to hear. I'm like, great. So you have a fantastic dating life, you have fantastic friendship, good relationship with your family, you make lots of money, you're happy all the time, like your life's just fucking perfect. And they're like, no, I live with my parents and I fight all the time, but I can give advice. It's like, get the results first. Get the results and the experience first. Like, the reason I'm confident in what I do is because I have the results and the experience. And I see so many people, especially young people, that come into it and they just skip all of that shit and just presume to start giving advice. And I do think that's a serious problem. And again, that's what makes it a selfish pursuit, because they don't actually care about having the things that they talk about. They care about presenting the image that they do. And that's like an internal validation. Like, they need to fix this internal shit first. Yeah. So I do have to agree with you on that. All right, I think I'm going to wrap up here because I'm getting hungry and I want to go get some food. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your questions. Anybody that's watching this, if you want to submit questions or call into the show, it's discord.gg/self-improvement, or there's a link down in the description if that vanity link ever changes. There's a section in that server called Off the Cuff, and you can submit your stuff there. There's a little submissions button, and it'll explain how to do everything. There's also a bunch of free posts. The social forums, like there's about 30 posts. There's going to be 60 at some point once I get around to finishing them. There's about 30 posts in there that you can read for free. There's forums. There's a behavioral forum, which is all about like habit forming and changing your mentality and your behaviors and making and breaking habits, improving your discipline, etc. And then there's the emotional forum, which is the least fixed of the forums. I need to put some more stuff in there, but there's a post in there that I think is quite good. It's all about dealing with negative emotions and experiences. And then there's the social forum, which is my bread and butter, which is all about making friends, getting dates, all of that shit. I offer free first time coaching calls to anybody that wants them, so we can have a private one-on-one call, start talking about fixing your issues. I will be back at 5 p.m. Sofia time next week. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm going to give it a few seconds before I end the stream, otherwise YouTube will cut me off. But you can all fuck off now. Thank you for coming. Someone says in the chat, awesome stream. Thank you.